Hey, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include chance, clients, and cash.
Wrong! What's wrong with you? What's wrong with y'all?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you people? Wrong! You do have to tolerate it. It's my show.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Surprise! One of my favorite words, one of my favorite concepts, and one of my favorite experiences is this thing called serendipity. First off, isn't that just a great word? Serendipity. It's so fun to say. I don't even know it doesn't even matter what it means. I just want to say the word serendipity. Now, serendipitous, not as fun. Serendipity? Yes. More serendipity, please. Serendipity is when you have like a chance encounter that totally works out to your benefit. It's, sometimes it's called a happy coincidence. And usually when we think of serendipity, it's when you run into somebody that you didn't expect to see. Like this came up because a friend was just telling me that they were randomly in a city in a random place and time, and my sister-in-law showed up, and his wife got to run with my sister-in-law, and they got to be running buddies, and they didn't expect to be. And my family had this great serendipity moment. I was going to say serendipitous moment, but I was trying to avoid it, and then I just tripped. So I'm really trying hard to say serendipity. That's what I wanted to say. So we went on vacation to Yosemite. Yosemite is this amazing national park in Northern California. You really need to see it. Put it on your list. Go there. It's amazing. So we go to this place where you can overlook the entire valley, and it's the best view of this mountain called Half Dome. It's kind of the picture you've seen the most of Yosemite. And as we're walking away into the parking lot, we run into our next door neighbors. They were there at the same exact time as we were, and neither of us had told the other one, hey, we're going out of town on vacation. Could you keep an eye on our house? Much less told them that we were going to be in Yosemite at the same exact time. Like just a random moment to run into them there. I had this friend many years ago. Well, before I tell you about my friend, I've heard that one of the magical things about living in New York is that you have these moments of serendipity frequently. It's such there's so many people and you're so packed in with the population density. It's just easy for this kind of thing to happen. And it's something that people in New York love. I had this friend, his name was Boston, and he was from Brooklyn, and that was totally confusing, but his name was Boston. He lived in Brooklyn, and he was going to be leaving. He was going to be going to college in Oklahoma, and there was a woman who was incredibly important to him, a real spiritual mentor. He had become a Buddhist, and this woman had kind of mentored him into this Buddhism that he had learned, and he was leaving town, and he hadn't gotten a chance to say goodbye to her. And he was really disappointed about that. And he gets on the subway to go to the airport. And in the very same exact car that he enters is this woman that he wanted to say goodbye to. Just hooray! Serendipity! Issue number 2! No way! Okay, I've been working as a self-employed graphic designer for over 20 years. And for the most part, my clients are great. I love them. Such a pleasure to work with. They allow me to have this job I love and get to work on things that I find interesting and fun and challenging. So grateful for my clients. As in most professions, you run into a few stories now and then that make your head scratch a little bit. And I thought this would be a fun moment to share the 3 most interesting stories I've had with clients over the last 3 years. And this comes up because I had a doozy last week. Oh my goodness. My head is still scrambled about this guy I was working with. But first, let me tell you these other two stories, because I think the new one kind of takes the cake. So the first story is I had set up this website for this company, and I showed up in their office to train 3 or 4 of their employees how to make updates to the website. And they each were going to get their own username. And I had sent, while we were sitting down, we all had, laptops in front of us. I had sent each of them in that moment a password reset. So they were supposed to type in their own password so that I wouldn't know it, but it would be something they knew. They typed in their own password and then had reset their passwords. So I start with the first woman and I say, okay, you've got your new password now. Go ahead and log into the website. And she says, I can't. I don't know my password. And I say, she had just reset it like 10 seconds earlier. And I say, okay, I'll send you the reset. First, why don't you get out a piece of paper and write down your new password? And she says, I have it right here. I already wrote it down. So I say, okay, why don't you just copy that then? And what can you do? I guess she was intimidated or something, but she had forgotten that she had just written it down until I reminded her. Second story. The lovely Wendy was in labor with our youngest daughter. In labor, mind you, in labor. I mean it. She was pushing and breathing, all that kind of stuff. I set up an auto response on my email saying to anybody who emails me, I'm sorry, my wife is in labor. Those were my exact words. I can't help you. I'll get back to you in 3 or 4 days when I'm back in the office, when she's done pushing. So I get this notification on my phone that this client had emailed me. So I knew he had gotten the auto response saying why I wasn't responding. So he emails me. 10 minutes go by. I know he's got the auto response. And he text messages me and says that he had done something that he shouldn't have done and broke his own website. And he needed me to fix it ASAP. I did not respond to him for 3 or 4 days because I had made it clear why I was not responding. And, maybe to give him credit, the acronym ASAP means different things to different people. Possibly. ASAP stands for as soon as possible. Now, I'm asking you, dear listener, what does ASAP mean to you? Does that mean it's late, it should have happened 2 days ago, I'll pay a rush fee, this has to happen now, like the house is on fire? Or does it mean, as soon as possible, like whenever it's, whenever you can get to it, when you can do it, whatever's possible? Either way, don't use the phrase ASAP because it's not exactly clear what you might mean. Okay, third story. This just happened this week. There's this guy. I'm setting up this website for him. And to give him some credit, some possible explanation, he recently had a stroke. And it's possible he's suffering some cognitive decline due to it. Or he's a narcissistic jerk and this is the way he behaves. I don't know him well enough to know, and it could be some combination of both. But maybe there's just an off chance that this is all explained by the stroke. And really, if it is, he needs to retire. It's time. So he's supposed to send me this login information to connect something else to his website. And I'm waiting 3 weeks for him to send this to me. And he finally sends it to me. And the minute he sends it to me, he wants it done now. All right, here you go. Like it should have been done already 3 weeks ago. I don't know what you're waiting for. He doesn't say that, but that's kind of the vibe he puts off. Like, here it is. Why isn't it already done? And I'm busy. I wait a day and I go to check this password that he sent me, and it doesn't work. And I had a feeling it wasn't going to work. So I say, hey, this password doesn't work. And he starts sending me screenshots saying, yes, it does. Look, I'm logged in. Look, it works. I'm logged in. And I said, I see that you're logged in, but what you gave me, is this the correct thing? Because it's not working for me. He's like, I just tested it. I logged in. I say, could you just please verify that none of the letters or none of the numbers are missing in the password you typed out to me? And he finally looks at, like, I have to ask 3 times. And he finally looks at it and he says, oops, sorry, it was missing a letter. And then he says, sorry about that. I'm texting and driving. It's hard to do with only one good arm. What are you doing? You've only got one good arm and you're texting and driving? Like, stop it. Like, don't, no. You're going to die. You're going to kill somebody. Like, none of this is that important. And like, so I was really frustrated at this point. And I said, please don't text me while you're driving. It's dangerous and it causes unnecessary errors. So a day later, okay, let's just assume that his website is, I make the changes and he's like, these words are totally wrong. It says you're going to give this whole thing away for free. It didn't say that. It said free mug with purchase. And he said, it says, free thing with purchase of a mug. He was reading it completely backwards. And I was like, no, it says free mug with purchase. And he takes the screenshot and he sends it to me and he circles it and it says free mug with purchase. And I'm like, thank you for confirming that it's right. And again, I don't know what's going on with him. So then the next day he texts, and let's just say that his website is websitestrong.com. That's not his website, not related at all to anything he's doing. But let's just say that it's websitestrong.com. And he texts and says, why isn't strengthofwebsite.com working? It never works for me. And of course it doesn't work because your website is strongwebsite.com. Strength of website will never work. I don't know what's going on with this guy, but I'm pretty much walking away. I feel like I've done my job for him at this point, and hopefully, well, he already told me I was fired because I wasn't responding to his text messages at 9 p.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. So, my loss, I'm sure. Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question or topic or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@thewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, thewrongpodcast.com. And help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. Now, it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
Listener Michael writes in and says, I sat down at a staff table today with Matt and Trevor and Eric, and your podcast came up, and we were all talking about it. You've officially become water cooler conversation. We were mad at your teacher for not defending you on Kennedy Space Center. Thank you, guys. That's awesome. I love being water cooler conversation. And I've got to say, I know all 4 of these guys, and I've got to say that when you can say that you appreciate and respect 3 out of 4 of your listeners, that's a win. As a follow-up, listener Matt sent me this photo of this storage center in Michigan called Kennedy's Space Center. So maybe my friend Cody had been to Michigan. Issue number 3, loans. Okay, there is a lot of talk over the last several years about student loan forgiveness, and it's become even more popular in the last week or two. A number of Democrats, particularly the far left base, is really pushing for it. We really need to forgive all of these student loans. And for the last 2 years, there's actually been a moratorium on student loan interest. And it's cost us, I think, billions of dollars to not accrue this interest over the pandemic. We could have been handing out a lot of cash to people based on the interest we're not accruing. But people are saying, no, that's still not enough. We just need to forgive all these loans. Just wipe them off the table right now. $50,000 of loans wiped off for anybody who's making less than $150,000 a year. No reason. It doesn't matter where they went or why they have so many loans. Just $50,000 right off the top. Now, the average student debt in the country is $37,000. And I just want to put my cards on the table. I went to an expensive private college. Through a combination of scholarships, grants, and working up to 40 hours a week, I paid for 3 of those years of college. And then the 4th year I paid for with loans. And my loan total with inflation adjusted came out to be more than the current national average of $37,000. So I had these debts. I think I speak as somebody who knows what it's like to have a large student loan, but it was completely manageable. I paid it off. I deferred it a couple of times, particularly when I was starting my business, and I paid it off in just over 10 years' time. And, it would have been great to have that wiped off. I wouldn't have complained about that one bit. I really would have appreciated it. But also, I felt like I got a good deal. I only had to borrow 1 out of 4 years of college, and I had over 10 years to pay it off. That was a good deal for me. And I went to an expensive private college. I got this premium education that I was looking for. And, the idea behind this student loan forgiveness push is that people believe that college should be free. It's free in other countries, particularly in Northern Europe. Nobody should be paying for college. Let's just make it free for them, even though it wasn't free at the time. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in particular has been pushing for it a lot. And she says that this is an issue of equity and equality. This is how we make things fair for people. It's a good investment for people, and it's a good investment for the country, and it's the only way to make things fair. Now, I'll tell you what I think about this idea.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
I think this is a bad idea. I don't think this is a good way to handle the problem. It's going overboard for an issue that isn't affecting that many people that negatively. Most people are able to manage their debt. They took the loans. They're happy to have taken the loans. They're able to pay it off. Like me, they'd be glad to have it written off, but they're able to manage it just fine. The people who are truly suffering under the debt are people who are in poverty, and they actually owe less than $5,000. So it's this thing called means testing, where you find out, okay, who's actually struggling with this, who can't afford it. So if you do that kind of means testing, $5,000 for, I don't know how many people, but however many people that is, $5,000 could resolve the issue. And maybe there's good reason to do that for them. And I will say that I think college is worth a lot. It's really a good idea. You will get ahead in life if you take off those 4 years and you invest in yourself and get an education. Time and time again, it's shown that people who have college degrees make more money. It's totally worth it. But it's not worth everything. You shouldn't just assume that because you're getting a college education that you can borrow whatever you want and you'll be able to pay it off. That is not true. And for some people, college is not a good idea. There are better career paths for them. Getting skills training in something like becoming an electrician or a plumber or a beautician, or even my job. I'm a graphic designer, and you do not need a college degree to be a graphic designer. Somebody can train you to do this. And if you have enough talent, you don't need the degree. So there are a number of people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. And they in particular would love this. I saw somebody on Twitter complaining that $10,000 in student loan forgiveness wouldn't even pay their interest for 1 year in student loan debt. And what? You've got $10,000 of interest per year from your loans? Like, what have you done? Like, where were you going to school and how much money were you borrowing? Like, were you eating sushi every night? And the people in this kind of situation who have hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans, they're most often people who have advanced degrees. They've got a master's degree or a PhD, or they went to a really expensive private college. And if you got a master's degree from a really expensive private college, I guess I can see how you could rack up that kind of debt, particularly if you were living in a city like Los Angeles, San Francisco, or New York. With the cost of rent, wow, that's a lot of money. And about 10 years ago, no, more than 10 years ago, it was like 2008 when the Occupy Wall Street thing was going on. Time moves fast. There was this story about this guy. This was the last time, student loan debt it started really making the headlines. Was that the big push during Occupy Wall Street was that student loan debt was too high and something needed to be done, and it was Wall Street's fault. And somebody found this guy who had quit his job so that he could get a master's in puppetry. And now he was suffering under his debt. And, I'm sorry you're suffering under your debt, but a master's degree in puppetry maybe wasn't a good investment. Maybe you shouldn't have quit your job to pursue that. Maybe you should have been working on that while working at the same time. Puppetry it's a super competitive field. We all, we love puppets. We love the Muppets. I love the Muppets. I'm glad to see them, but there's not a lot of jobs for puppeteers. And, getting a master's degree, that's one way to get ahead. If you can't get the experience, you can't get the job, you show that you've done this work. But even then, I'm guessing that they don't need you to have a master's degree to do the work that they have for you. You probably just need an inordinate amount of talent. And that education, it's worth something, but man, it's not worth what talent is when it comes to puppetry. So if you have taken out hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans and for an advanced degree, and you weren't studying law or science or medicine, like you didn't go to law school or medical school, you have probably made a really bad investment. Like you were never going to recoup that cost, both in the opportunity of the years that you could have been working, but also in just your salary being increasing because of that degree you got in puppetry or something like that. I love art and I want sculptors to be working, but a master's in sculpture, there's very few places that are going to pay for that kind of education. Now, I want to speak to this idea of fairness. We're only doing this to be fair to people. I've just got to say that this argument falls flat, and I cannot believe it's coming from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I know that they care about equality and equity and fairness. It makes sense that they say that it's about equity and equality, but this is like, just because you say it doesn't make it true. Make it true. First off, having the intelligence and the education in high school that allows you to be accepted to college is an expression of privilege. You are a privileged person if you're able to go to college in the United States. You have something that most people in the world don't have. And you even have something that many, or if not most people in the United States don't have. That can't be overlooked. You've already got an advantage over other people just to be able to go to college. Piggyback on that, being allowed to take out a loan of $50,000 when you have no job and no experience and no income, that's a major privilege. It's massive. Like, you do not get that kind of money. You are not allowed to borrow that kind of money just because. And you get to spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. Like, well, not whatever, but the guardrails are pretty wide about how much money you can spend on rent and food and what kind of college you can go to. Like, here's a check, go to any college you want in the nation. Wow, that is a major privilege. You are a privileged individual. Not everybody else is given that kind of money. Don't think that you're hurting because it was given to you. Like, no, you have an opportunity based on that money that you could do some really great things with. There are a lot of people who'd love to be given a loan of $50,000 for lots of different things that will improve their life, and it's not given to them. Now, the other thing is, if you want to give out this kind of money, if you just want to give $50,000 to people because it will improve their lives, why are you giving it to people who have the privilege of having a college degree? They've already got something that's helping them get ahead in life. They've got something that's a paycheck. They really do. They've got something that's considerably improving their lives. And you're going to give them an additional $50,000 on top of this great education that they already have? No, like, if you, forget $50,000. Go to the average family living in poverty or near poverty and say, hey, here's $5,000 to buy a car. That's going to make a huge difference in their lives, a massive difference in their lives. Much less $50,000. Like, if you gave them $50,000, they could buy a home or several cars or equipment for their occupation. Like, there's all kinds of things that they could do with that money. And they already are not living with the privilege of having a college degree on top of all that money you want to give them. Now, when it comes to expensive private colleges, we need to recognize that those places are for rich people. Just because you got accepted into an expensive private college doesn't mean that you can afford it. And like I was saying, a college degree is worth a lot. It's not worth everything. That expensive private college is going to give you basically the same books to read as your local community college, as your local state college. I'm not saying all colleges are equal. I'm sure that there are great teachers in great locations and great colleges, but there are some pretty great teachers in some pretty no-name colleges. And there's some pretty bad teachers in some pretty expensive schools. Just paying a lot of money for it doesn't mean you're getting a better education. What you're getting is, is smaller classroom size and a nicer dorm and, a sushi bar and things like that. You don't need all of those things to read the same books. They aren't going to make those books all that much better for you. And, some of this is the fault of the colleges. I think we really need to be we're pointing our guns at the wrong place to say, oh, these are predatory loans. It's the banks making all the money. No, student loans are federally regulated on what they can charge and what kind of interest they can give. The banks, in fact, aren't, they're borrowing the money from the government directly. They're basically just getting paid to process the loans. The real culprit here is the college that tells you that your life is going to be so much better because you chose to go there. That's not true. Some of these colleges are guilty of usury. They're getting you to give them all of your loan money that you're going to suffer under, and they're glad to take the money. And, like there's a lot of professors who know, hey, I'm not sure this advanced degree is really going to pay off for all these students, but they're going to have a hard time finding a job with this because there's really only one place in the country that teaches this thing, and I'm already teaching here, and I'm already teaching it. But that professor, he can't tell his students that, right? Like he can't say, hey, I'm not so sure that you want to invest the money in this because there's not a lot of job opportunities for this. Because if he does that, then he doesn't have a job opportunity. And I'm not saying all the professors are in on it. I'm saying they've got a reason to keep their mouths shut when they know that not all of these degrees are going to pay off. And if you go to a place like USC, the University of Southern California, and you take out loans to go there, that's a really expensive school. It's really expensive. It's for rich people. If you go there and all you're doing is taking out loans to go there, and you walk away with something like an elementary education degree, or a sculpture degree, or an art degree, you just got screwed. Like, really, you got screwed by USC. They did not give you the kind of education that's going to pay off their debt that you just incurred. You'd be making a much better choice to go somewhere else. And, a lot of these people with massive student loans, they want it paid off, but they didn't choose to go to the state school where it would have been cheaper. And maybe we should be giving free public college education to everybody. And I got bad news for you. If you went to Evergreen College, you paid for something much more expensive than what the government is going to give you, even if we choose to make college education free for everybody. Now, I think this idea is death to the Democratic Party. I do not understand why they're pursuing it other than to pander to their own base. The Democratic Party over the last 8 to 6 years is becoming more and more white and more college educated. And a big shock about the 2016 election was that a bunch of blue-collar people moved from being Democrats to Republicans. And if you do this, if you give $50,000 to college-educated people, you can be darn sure you're going to lose a lot more of those blue-collar voters. They're going to say the Democratic Party doesn't care about the little guy anymore. They just care about their own college-educated base. So good luck, Democrats. Like, you've got you've got this small window. I understand you want to do it now because you're about to lose the House and the Senate, and you've got the presidency. This is your moment to do it. But do it at your own peril. Now, how can we fix this situation? I don't think the system is perfect. I think there's some things we could do to fix it. Here's just a few ideas. Currently, if you go bankrupt, you don't discharge your student loan debt. You still have to pay it, even if you declare bankruptcy. And perhaps, 5-7 years of consistent payment, maybe that earns you the right to declare bankruptcy and have that discharged. The problem with allowing student loan debt to be discharged in bankruptcy is that a ton of students would get their degrees, and then 6 months later, they would say, oh, I'm bankrupt. And then they'd wipe it all out, right? Like, it's a no-brainer. You don't have credit history already. Why not? Why not wipe out $50,000 of debt just because you can? So there probably needs to be some sort of timeline put on it when you could actually declare bankruptcy and be free of this debt. The other thing is that maybe we have non-compounding interest. The interest accrues on whatever you originally borrowed, but it doesn't accrue upon the interest itself. Maybe that's a way to make things a little bit easier. Make sure the debt doesn't get too high. Another idea is that we cap the amount of money that people can borrow at whatever the state college tuition is. So, if you're in California, state tuition is at most $30,000 for all 4 years. I don't know what it is, but let's just say it. Then you can go to USC, you can go to Stanford, you can go to any, expensive private college you want to, but you can't borrow more than you would have borrowed if you had gone to the state college. This will keep a lot of people out of trouble. It'll also mean that they can't go to the expensive school that they want to go to. But it'll keep them out of debt. And then I think another idea is that sometimes those loan payments, they don't seem real, particularly to somebody whose brain isn't fully formed. They don't know what they're signing up for. They don't know how much it's going to cost them in the future. So, and maybe they do this, I don't know, but I do not believe it was done for me. But every time you sign a new loan, they put a piece of paper in front of you that says, this is how much this is going to cost you per month for the next 10 years. Do you think you can pay this off? And if you start seeing that you're going to be paying $2,000 a month for the next 10 years, you'll make a different choice. Even though the loan is offered to you, you'll say, this doesn't seem like a good debt to me. But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. And let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.